live from its Manchester studios for your Sunday night enjoyment, drama, comedy, suspense. ABC Television presents Armchair Theater.
Пятнадцать, 14, 13, 12, 11, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, огонь!
H-bomb talks. The current three-power talks on the proposals to ban the H-bomb, at present taking place in London, have suffered another setback. Mr. Igor Petrov, the representative of the Soviet Union, has tabled a resolution that unless preliminary discussion...
Good morning, Miss Harkness.
Morning, Mr. Walpole.
We've a very busy day in front of us.
Well, because of the H-bomb talks breaking down, you mean?
Exactly. Mr. Crichton will be very worried.
Yes, well, he's worked very hard to make them a success.
He's a diplomat, Miss Harkness. Setbacks are an occupational hazard.
I know. That doesn't make it any easier, does it?
Right. Anything in the mail?
Oh, just the usual, I expect.
I'll get it finished as soon as you can.
Mm-hmm. Oh.
What is it?
It's this letter.
What about it?
Well, what do I do with it?
What do you usually do with letters like that? Mark it unbalanced anonymous and put it through the normal channels for investigation.
Well, yes, I know, but this is a little different, isn't it?
How different? It's anonymous, and it's certainly unbalanced.
Yes, well, I think Mr. Crichton ought to see it.
Oh, don't be ridiculous. Mr. Crichton is far too busy to worry himself with unbalanced letter writers. Now, do as I say, please.
Come in a moment, Henry, will you?
Morning, love. Tea's up.
Good morning, Bella.
Biscuits this morning?
Yes, please.
Here, I say it's a bit of a turn-up, isn't it? Them H-bomb talks breaking down. I said to Bert this morning, I said to him, what did I tell you? It's no good sitting down talking to them foreigners. They just don't want to know. Yeah, I said, if I had my way, I'll tell you what I'd do. I'd give the Russians a glass of vodka and the Americans a glass of whiskey, and let them all sit down, have a nice cosy little chat and sort it all out that way, you know. Nice and matey like we do at the local. All right. You got one of them, I can destroy the sun letters and all.
Why, have you seen one before?
Mr. Cartwright, he got one this morning.
Really?
What's his nib say about it?
Mr. Crichton's far too busy to be bothered about things like this.
Not too busy to stop someone destroying the sun, I hope. I go on my holidays next week.
Bella? Bella, are you certain that Mr. Cartwright got one of these letters this morning?
Yeah, I read it myself. Anyway, love, that'd be 8 so shall I book it?
Oh, book it, will you, Bella?
Right.
Yes, I know, sir. I spoke to Cartwright this morning. He said the meetings have reached complete deadlock. There's no hope of a compromise this time. Yes, I told him that, sir. Well, I've invited the Russian and American delegates to a conference here this evening, an informal one. We'll try and work out something then. Yes, of course I will. Goodbye, sir. Draft 2 invitations, one to Petrov and one to Boardman, asking to an informal meeting here this evening. I don't suppose they'll come, but at least we can try. Let me see the drafts and send them off by courier this afternoon.
Yes, sir. Now, Miss Harkness.
Yes.
Will you please arrange couriers this afternoon for 2 letters? One to Mr. Petrov, one to Mr. Boardman, sometime after lunch.
Yes. Mr. Walpole? Mr. Cartwright is our delegate to the H-bomb talks, isn't he?
He is.
Well, he got one of these letters this morning, too.
Sir?
Well, I don't know. I just thought that if Mr. Cartwright got one as well, doesn't it make a difference?
What difference? Just because a man is a crackpot, I don't see he's any less a crackpot because he multiplies his efforts.
This letter was addressed to Mr. Crichton. I'm going to show it to him.
Now, Miss Hopkins.
Well?
I'm sorry, sir. I told her she
It's
was...
this letter, sir. It came this morning. Mr. Walpole wanted me to mark it unbalanced anonymous, but I thought you ought to see it.
Let me see it. Right. I think Mr. Walpole's right, don't you?
Yes, sir, except that Mr. Crichton got one as well.
Exactly the same?
Yes, sir.
How do you know?
Well, Bella, she's the woman who brings in the tea trolley. She told me.
Absolute rubbish, sir. There was...
Let's see if Bella knows what she's talking about, shall we? Hello, James. Did you get a letter this morning, I can destroy the sun?
I can destroy the sun.
I can destroy the sun, that's what it says.
Hold on a minute and I'll ask my secretary.
He's asking his secretary.
Did we get a letter this morning saying I can destroy the sun?
Yes, sir. I marked it unbalanced anonymous.
Yes, sir. We did get a letter this morning saying I can destroy the sun.
Thank you very much. Goodbye. It seems that Bella was right. Thank you for bringing it to me.
Will that be all, sir?
Yes, thank you. Henry, about this letter.
You're not going to take any notice of it, are you?
Oh, no, of course not. It's obvious what you say it is, but give it to MI5. Travers will handle it and tell him about the other one.
It'll reach Travers through the channels.
That'll take days. You know what the usual channels are. Let's short-circuit them for once, shall we, and let him start his investigations immediately.
Yes, sir.
And, Henry, don't be too angry with that girl. At least she's keen, which is more can be said for most of them.
Yes, sir.
They look exactly the same.
We never had identical crackpot letters delivered at the same time to two different people before.
Seems to indicate he's a keen crackpot. Posted in South London, 6:15 yesterday evening.
Beautiful writing. Wait a minute. Well, you're right. He is a keen crackpot. You've got a letter from him, too. Sorry, I haven't opened the mail yet. Otherwise, I'd have seen it earlier. You are?
Same handwriting. I see if it's the same message. Hey, listen to this. Dear Superintendent, as Principal Investigating Officer for the Foreign Office, you'll have on your desk 2 letters which were delivered this morning. I hope that by sending you this covering letter, I can convince you of the fact that this is no hoax. To convince you still further...
I should like you to be in Mr. Crichton's office at 9 o'clock tomorrow morning. And remember, I can destroy the sun.
I still say it's preposterous. We all get crackpot letters yesterday morning. We admit we think they're crackpot. Yet here we are hanging around waiting just because the crackpot told us to.
Well, Cartwright is our representative of the talks. It certainly concerns you, but if that's the way you feel about it, why don't you bother to come?
Until you can get these talks going again, I have nothing else to do. May as well waste my time here as anywhere else.
Come in. Has the mail come?
No, sir. They've just telephoned from downstairs, sir. There's someone coming up to see you.
I can't see anyone, you know that.
I know, sir. This is Igor Petrov.
Petrov. Here, to see me at this time. I asked him tonight.
I know, sir. He's on his way up now.
Show him in as soon as he arrives.
Yes.
I wonder what that man's doing here now.
When he got up from that table the day before yesterday, I could have sworn he was through with the talks for good.
Oh, perhaps it's just a social visit. I knew him quite well during the war.
They were on our side then.
The Russian and American delegates, sir.
Boardman, too.
Yes, sir.
Morning, gentlemen. Mr. Boardman.
Hello, Crichton.
Mr. Petrov.
Good morning.
Petrov?
Hello,
Right.
Cartwright.
Henry.
Mr. Petrov?
Thank you.
I will have one of my own, if I may.
Mr. Boardman.
Thank you.
Thanks. Thanks, Henry.
Mr. Cartwright, Mr. Crichton, I assume you have good reason for sending me this letter.
Which letter?
This letter. This I can destroy the sun nonsense. And the other letter would say that I should be here this morning in your office to hear something vitally important.
Well, what can I say, Mr. Petrov, except that I did not send either of these letters?
I suppose I can assume that you didn't write to me either. Oh, come on, Crichton, what's that all about?
Come in.
The mail is here now, sir. I think this is the letter you're waiting for.
I thank you, Henry. Thank you very much. Well, perhaps this will explain things. Huh? Gentlemen, it starts. I hope you have heeded my warning and gathered to hear this, my ultimatum. I am delivering it to you because you are the ones who are involved in the discussions at present taking place with regard to the banning of the hydrogen bomb. These talks you're engaged on must succeed. There must be no breakdown in negotiations, no slip-ups of any kind, no delays or postponements, no other result, in fact, than an absolute agreement to ban from now on all work on or tests on this weapon. If you do not come to this agreement, I will destroy the sun. This I can do, make no mistake about it. As proof of my claim, I should like you to get one of your astronomers to look at the satellite Phobos, which is normally in orbit around its parent planet Mars. He will know of it, but he will fail to find it. I have destroyed it, just as I will destroy the sun. You have 4 days in which to reach an agreement and publish the terms of this agreement to the world. 4 days, gentlemen. Well, that's it.
Knows not the sketch?
Mr. Petrov?
I'm sorry. It's nothing. Apologize.
Mr. Borman?
I'd like to have a true copy of that letter.
Indeed you shall, Mr. Petrov.
Thank you.
Well, I suppose we'd better get someone to look at this satellite Phobos.
Excuse me, sir, but isn't that derived from the Latin for...
Fear. Jodrell Bank with the bosun.
The new observatory at Tipston is more powerful than Jodrell Bank, sir. It's a combination of optical and radio astronomy. I know Dr. Lund, senior astronomer.
Then get on to him, no?
Yes, sir.
And I suggest, gentlemen, we meet again at 9 o'clock this evening, informally, yeah?
Mrs. Travers, you get me the observatory at Tipston? I want to speak to Dr. James Lund.
Observatory? Yes, he is. Who wants him? Oh, well, hold on a moment, will you? Dr. Lund, it's for you, sir, the Foreign Office.
Oh, I'll take it up here. Hello, yes? Oh, hello, Superintendent. How are you? Yes? The planet what? Oh, Phobos. Yes, yes, I know it. A Martian satellite. Well, look at it. What on earth for? Well, all right. It'll take some time to line up the scope. Yes, yes, I'll ring you later. Yes, yes, I promise, as soon as I can. Thompson, I want the circuits reset. Break down what we've got and then come to my office for the new readings.
Yes, sir. Peter.
Yes, sir.
Come and give me a hand. We've got some relining to do. Yes, sir.
11:30.
Bring us back an hour and a half, yeah.
Get him again?
No, don't bother. Yes, yes, get on to him. See what's holding him up.
Get me Tipston again, would you?
Well, I don't care what you say. There must be a circuit error somewhere. You check it again.
Hello? Yes. It's for you, sir. And the Foreign Office again.
Well, oh, I'll tell them myself. Hello. Look, I told you I'd ring you when I was ready. Well, we've got the scope trained on Phobos.
Yes, all right, Dr. Lund. Yes, thank you. Telescope's trained on Phobos, sir, but he thinks there must be something wrong with the circuits. He's sorry, but they're unable to locate it at present.
I'm going back to the embassy.
Oh, I guess you can forget about that true copy, Craig.
Yes, indeed. I'm very sorry to waste your time. He did promise to Mr. Lana, however.
Hello. Yes, Dr. Lund. You're sure? Thank you. The satellite Phobos has gone.
Yes, we did hold an informal meeting of the 3-power delegates yesterday, but it was strictly informal. No, I'm afraid I can't tell you anything more. Why doesn't the newsroom deal with the press? That's what they're there for.
Morning. Crichton in yet?
Yes, he's expecting you.
Thank you. Come on.
Oh, I wonder what's going on.
If we're required to know, no doubt we shall be told.
Morning, all.
Morning, Bella.
Had some biscuits this morning, Mary?
No, thank you.
Oh. Well, have they found him yet?
Found who?
The bloke what said he was going to destroy the sun.
That's enough. This is none of our business.
None of our business? I like that. Here's a bloke what says he's going to destroy the sun, and you say it ain't none of our business. Well, if it ain't ours, whose is it? None of our business. Oh, can't like that.
You actually mean to tell me they failed to locate this satellite, what's called Phobos?
Tried all day and half the night, sir. Just isn't there anymore.
Now, what does Lund say?
Well, he blames the telescope, which is pretty noble of him, considering he built the thing.
Then we take it that this thing has been destroyed, have we?
We do, sir. At least we take it that Phobos isn't there anymore.
Now, what's the next one?
Get the talks restarted, I suppose, and this time reach an agreement.
Just like that?
Well, if you don't, our mysterious letter writer might well be waiting to keep his promise.
Charming.
And now, look, sir, as I see it, we're obviously dealing with a crackpot.
Inside.
But there's just a chance that this crackpot might be able to do what he threatens. So even if you gentlemen do reach agreement on banning the H-bomb, what's to say he won't go ahead and destroy the sun anyway? He's mad enough to contemplate it. He's mad enough to do anything.
Mr. Boardman and Mr. Petroff, sir.
Gentlemen, Mr. Boardman.
Hello, Crichton. Mr. Petroff.
Morning. Oh, morning, Superintendent.
Morning, sir.
Anything developed yet?
No, sir, I'm sorry. The letters are still being examined. They might help.
I doubt it.
So do I, sir. But we're trying.
I take it you two gentlemen be in touch with your respective governments.
I have been in touch with Moscow.
I've talked with Washington.
Am I to be allowed to know their reactions to this matter?
Surely. First, they checked on the disappearance of the planet Phobos just to make certain. Then they held a midnight cabinet meeting. The outcome is that of the new talks, which we hope to get started right away, an agreement must be reached in time to meet this ultimatum. Not that Washington necessarily believes a thing like this could happen, but official opinion says don't take any chances while the matter's being investigated.
As simple as that. You've been told to reach an agreement.
Subject to a little give or take on each side, yes.
Now, Mr. Petroff, may we know what Moscow thinks of the matter?
Moscow is trying at present to locate Phobos themselves. I have been instructed to wait until I hear from them again. Until such time, the Soviet resolution made at the meeting must remain a staple.
Then we can't reassemble the meeting.
Those are my orders. If Mr. Boardman, on behalf of the United States, could see his way clear
Look,
to any...
if you're thinking of forcing a resolution through, you're wasting your time. The principles...
The principles! What have principles got to do with what America is trying?
Please, until Mr. Petroff hears from Moscow, there's obviously no point in reconvening the meeting.
You have heard our side of the affair, Mr. Crichton. Are we not to hear the reaction of the British government? Where's Mr. Cartwright?
Would you sit down, gentlemen, please?
Thank you.
Her Majesty's government has given me full powers to deal with this situation on its behalf. I will tell you what Her Majesty's government feels. We convened this meeting in order to discuss the H-bomb and reach an agreement on its control and abolition. Now, even if this whole thing is a hoax, we still want that agreement. If we hadn't wanted, we wouldn't have met in the first place. Therefore, I suggest on behalf of Her Majesty's government, regardless of whether this is a threat or not, let us reach an agreement. In the meantime, we shall do our best to try and trace the source of these letters. We are of the opinion, I'm sure Moscow and Washington will agree, that if we've reached a sorry state of affairs, if we have to have the threat of total extinction hanging over our heads before we can agree. After all, isn't what we're trying to do going to eventually obviate the possibility of total extinction of a different kind?
Mr. Crichton, Whatever my personal feeling in a matter might be, that is immaterial. And you know, they can have no bearing on what I must do. When I speak, it must be for the Soviet government, not for myself.
There's nothing more we can do here. I suggest you gentlemen return to your embassies. We'll rely on Mr. Petrov to get in touch with us the moment he has from Moscow.
I shall.
And as soon as we Inspector Travers will do all he can to trace the letters. As soon as he turns up with them, I'll let you both know.
Right, Crichton?
Right, Inspector?
Right. Another deadlock.
And only you can break it. Find that man.
No, I'm sorry. No, I'm afraid he isn't. He's with Mr. Crichton. Yes, I'll ask him to call you as soon as he gets in. Oh, Mr. Travers, Mr. Summers just called. It's about that diplomatic immunity business. I said you call him back.
Later. Anything from the lab yet?
No.
Get them for me, would you?
Well, what about Mr. Summers?
I'll call him afterwards. Tell him I'm working on something else. He better handle that job himself.
Well, he won't like it.
Well, that's his headache. If he's got any complaints, he can get on to Crichton. I'll get the lab like a good go.
All right, you're through.
Travers. Yes, Phil. Yes. All right. Stick them on my desk, will you?
No luck?
Ordinary paper, ordinary ink. No prints other than the ones we already know about. In fact, nothing to go on at all.
Isn't that what you expected?
Nevertheless, it's a disappointment.
Mr. Travers, do you mind if I ask you something?
What?
Not that it's any of my concern, I suppose.
Oh, go ahead.
Well, this man you're looking for, what happens when you find him?
You mean what happens?
This invention of his. He's probably an Englishman, so will it automatically belong to England?
I suppose so. So what?
Well, surely that's better than the Russians. I mean, wouldn't it be possible to use it, well, in some way to preserve peace?
I don't see how. This thing's too big. Can't come to terms with annihilation.
Mr. Crichton and the others, well, surely they could find a way.
Look, Helen, this is more than a deterrent. It's a sort of warning to humanity. This invention really does exist. There are only two alternatives. Give the secret to the world or throw the switch and wipe humanity off the face of the earth.
Superintendent Travers' office? Oh, yes, sir. I'll tell him at once. That was Mr. Crichton. He wants to see you right away.
That man's always in a hurry. Don't make any mistakes, Helen. This thing concerns you, all right. And me. And everyone who wants to go on living.
I don't care. Well, Mr. Crichton insists that it's done immediately. Well, then you'll have to speak to Mr. Crichton about it yourself. Goodbye. Some newspaper has got hold of a stupid theory as to why the talks have broken down. Mr. Crichton doesn't want it printed. Oh, please go in, Superintendent. Mr. Crichton is waiting for you.
Thank you.
Come in.
You wanted to see me, sir?
Yes. Petrov phoned me. There's another letter waiting for him at the embassy when he returned from the same source as the others.
Oh, what did it say?
Just how it was, the writer suspecting that Moscow will be skeptical of his claims to be able to destroy the sun has arranged for their benefit a special demonstration of his powers.
Another missing planet?
Oh, better this time. It's a small planet called Atheos. At 11:22 precisely, it's going to be destroyed. He suggests that anybody who still doubts his claims will be watching Atheos at that time.
Well, if he succeeds in doing it, at least we'll know we're not dealing with a practical joker.
Did you think we were?
I'd hoped we were, sir, but I don't think I really believed it. This one was too practical about the whole thing.
Well, tonight you will go with Cartwright to the laboratory and the delegates, and you will know for sure.
Atheos is 33.5 million miles away, you understand. It's a small satellite of one of the major planets. Normally it's difficult to locate, but with this scope we can usually manage.
Moscow will be able to see Atheos, I trust.
No, yes, I'm sure they will.
And Washington, huh?
From Mount Palomar. Tell me again, Mr. Cartwright, what's the reason we're watching Atheos?
We're expecting an explosion there at 11:22.
Ah, that's right, you told me. And am I allowed to know what sort of an explosion?
If we knew Dr. Lund, we'd tell you.
This really is most exciting. What time was the launching?
What launching?
Well, the missile that's going to cause the explosion.
I haven't the faintest idea.
Oh, top secret information, I suppose.
Very much so. It's now 11:15.
7 minutes to go.
I didn't dream we had rockets powerful enough to reach a stellar body such as Atheos.
Neither did I. I beg your pardon? Oh, I'm speaking for myself, not for our Russian scientists.
Tell me, Dr. Lunn, if someone told you that they could destroy the sun, what would you say?
Well, I'd say it was a stupid thing to do.
And impossible, of course.
Oh, no, I wouldn't go as far as that. You see, in the light of present-day technology, I'd hesitate to say that anything was impossible. Destroy the sun. Of course, I'm not an astrophysicist, you understand, but I do have, shall we say, slightly more than a layman's knowledge of these things. Now, certain elements undergo fission, such as uranium and plutonium. As you know yourselves, the H-bomb and so forth work on that principle. Now, if it's not controlled, total explosion will result.
Yes, but this doesn't help us in
Please,
finding...
Mr. Cartwright, I haven't finished. At present, as far as I'm aware, fission such as this can only be brought about by a physical third party, shall we say. Now, assuming that third party can be directed by remote control, I see no reason why the results you specified shouldn't be achieved.
Destroying the sun.
Oh, the sun, the moon, Mars, Jupiter, even Atheos. Now, just imagine if someone on Earth could accelerate the chain reaction that's going on in that gigantic mass of gas that's our sun. He could make it into a nova.
A nova?
Yes, it's a star multiplying its heat and light to 10,000-fold. It's like it's like a candle becoming a lighthouse.
But how would it be possible to do this from Earth?
Ah, there you have me, I'm afraid. But take this telescope, for instance. Now, this works on the principle of radar and radio. It transmits a signal. Yes, such a signal might be used to accelerate a chain reaction. Yes, beam the telescope onto the sun, switch on this special apparatus of yours, and there you are.
Then you admit that such a thing is possible?
Well, with the special equipment that you mentioned, yes. But I didn't know that anyone had developed it. I should dearly like to see it.
So should we.
If I understood you correctly, Dr. Lunn, do you mean that any radio-beamed telescope would do?
Oh, yes, I should think so. Even a Russian one.
That narrows down our field of investigation. All we have to do is look for people who have access to radio telescopes.
Are there many of these things, Dr. Lunn?
No, not many.
The trappers who investigated for us went to travel...
Yes, of course. Exactly how many, Doctor?
About 400. Of course, all that I've been saying is based on the efficiency of this other equipment.
Would it have to be large?
I haven't the faintest idea. As I say, I've only got the smallest knowledge of what it can do. As to what it would have to consist of, I'm afraid I can't help you.
It's 11:21. Is that Atheos?
Yes, that's Atheos. It's bleak, isn't it?
Exactly 11:22, he said.
Exactly.
Seconds.
Disappointed, something must have gone wrong.
So it was a hoax, after all.
Of course it was a hoax. Who could possibly do a thing as this?
I'm sorry, gentlemen, we have followed the instructions of Mr. Petrov's letter. We have watched Atheos.
Maybe. I've yet to see a true copy of the letter the Soviet delegate claims he received.
Ah, Mr. Baldman, you shouldn't see the letter. The letter has been written to me, to Igor Petrov, not to my government.
Well, I, for one, don't mind admitting I was pretty worried. Even if that thing is 33.5 million miles away.
Yes, it is, isn't it?
What?
33.5 million miles away.
What about it?
Well, if the explosion happened there at exactly 11:22, then the light would take 3 minutes to reach us. We wouldn't see it until 11:25.
What's the time now?
11:24 and a half.
Yes, sir. We saw the whole thing. Yes, he was there. I don't know what the reaction will be. He's talking to Moscow right now.
Правильно, товарищ, правильно. Я видел с английской государственной обсерватории. Но теперь я вернусь в эмбассу. До свидания, товарищ, до свидания.
Well, they've been in there an hour. How much longer?
I've just been looking at the 16mm record. It's most impressive indeed. I don't know when I've been so excited. I'm sure that Moscow and Washington must have had a first-class view of it. Not as good as this, of course, but first class. Ah. Well, did they see it?
They saw it. Well, I shall be getting back to the embassy.
Yes, me too. Doctor, there's just one thing. What exactly would happen here on Earth if somebody did succeed in destroying the sun?
What do you mean, like Atheos?
Yeah, like Atheos.
To be very serious indeed.
That much we assume. Exactly how serious?
Well, a number of things would happen. It's rather difficult to work out which one would happen first.
Could you give us a few examples?
The temperature, for one, let it drop and keep on dropping.
To what point?
Well, indefinitely, I should say. Certainly to the lowest point that we know.
What's that?
273 degrees below zero. Centigrade, of course.
Well, how long will that take?
Well, it's difficult to be precise in these matters. Possibly a few days, a few minutes, or no time at all. Then, of course, there's a matter of our atmosphere. You see, the carbon dioxide that poisons the air around us is converted into oxygen by the trees and flowers and so on. Well, without the sun, there'd be no trees and flowers. Oxygen would become non-existent, and asphyxia would result. Yes, I'm rather afraid that death would be a slow but inevitable process.
273 below, I should think it would be welcome.
Quite.
Anything else, Dr. Lund?
I think the crust of the Earth would split. Yes, I'm sure it would. Certainly every volcano would erupt, even the long-extinct ones. And the sad thing is, you know, that with all this happening, there'd be no one around to care about it. You see, the Earth is a planet of the sun. It revolves around the sun, controlled by the gravity. That's the force that attracts the two bodies. But I'll show you. Just imagine that the sun is my hand and the keys are the Earth. Now, here we have the Earth revolving round the sun, and it's held in its orbit by the force exerted from the sun. You see, that's the key chain. Now, you take away that force and... That's the Earth. Without the sun, yes.
That's very interesting, isn't it, sir? You, Mr. Petrov, you find that interesting, don't you?
What are you getting at, Travers?
I think I know, Cartwright. But let him speak, please.
About you, Mr. Baldwin. May I speak?
Please do. Unlike the Soviet delegate, I don't know what you're getting at.
It's very simple, really. I've been standing here watching your reactions. They're curious, but isolated. You know, it's funny. People like you, whatever you learn, nothing ever happens. You talk and talk and talk, and still nothing happens. It makes me wonder whether you realize you're dealing in human lives. Millions of human lives. Your own included.
Travers, I don't think these gentlemen are really...
Ever since I was called in on this case, sir, one thing struck me as being quite incredible. The fact that it's necessary for some man to come along with an idea like this, like destroying the sun before you lot will sit down at a table and even talk. And yet now, with a threat like this hanging right over our heads, you still can't reach an agreement. Well, you'll pardon me for saying so, gentlemen, but the whole thing's beyond my comprehension.
It's no good talking like that, Travers. You haven't attended one of these meetings.
No, sir, I haven't, and I'm very grateful because of it. I'm a policeman. My job in the first instance is the prevention of crime. Look, if I see one man cutting another man's throat, I move in and do something about it. I don't stop to find out whether the victim himself is carrying a razor. I just move in and stop the fight. Well, you gentlemen are like policemen, too, because your job, as I see it, is also the prevention of crime. Crime on a bigger scale. Bigger than anything we've ever known. Where the victim's not just one person, but millions of people all over the world. Yet you do nothing about stopping it. Well, let's face it, gentlemen, any policeman who acted the way you did would have been kicked off the force years ago.
No, Cartwright. Let him go ahead. I think he may have a point.
You men hold in your hands the destiny of the earth and of all the people who live on it. One mistake, one slip, and the rest is chaos. But what bothers me and millions more like me is, do you realize that? Or are you so cut off from the ordinary people that you're beyond realizing? You've lived for so long now in an atmosphere of distrust. Your main job nowadays is to make certain the other fellow doesn't put something over on you, isn't it? And all this high-sounding talk about loving one's neighbor, that's a lot of rubbish. You hate each other's guts.
You're not speaking personally, I trust, Superintendent.
No, sir. I'm not speaking personally. I'm speaking of the governments you represent. Look, Russia doesn't care if America is H-bombed, any more than America cares whether Russia or the UK suffer a similar fate. But what they do care about, all of them, is the bomb that lands on their own heads. Now, not the head of humanity, you understand. That's something different. Humanity can go and take a running jump where you're concerned.
Superintendent, I'd like you to know the United States is not discussing the termination of H-bomb tests just as a matter of expedience.
What other reason is there but expedience?
The Soviet government is trying very hard to reach an agreement as a gesture towards world peace.
World peace isn't good enough, Mr. Petrov. It's world security we want. We all know what a continuation of these tests will mean. In 15 to 20 years' time, our atmosphere, the air we breathe, will be so filthy with radiation that our grandchildren will be born into a world of deformity, mutation. Your own grandchildren, gentlemen. Not just the Americans, or it wouldn't matter to the Soviets. And not just the Soviets, or the Americans couldn't care less, but all of them, all over the world. They'll be blind, deaf, cripples, idiots. And that will be the brave new world you all talk about.
Gentlemen, I really must apologize. Travers has no right to express...
I've got every right, sir. I've got a couple of kids. Now, I'm sorry if I've embarrassed or offended any of you gentlemen. It's just the way I feel.
No, you haven't offended me, Superintendent. And I am sure you haven't offended Mr. Boardman either.
Indeed, no. On the contrary.
Of course, all the things you've been saying no longer applies. Does it, Superintendent?
What's that, sir?
The world you just illustrated will never exist. Either we stop the test, in which case there will be no radiation, or we don't stop them. And someone destroys the sun.
It seems to me that a conclusion should be easily arrived at.
It seems to me that way, too. Mr. Boardman?
Yes. That's the way it looks.
Разговор между тремя державами окончен совершенным согласием.
Completo successo della conferenza tra le tre potenze. Gli esperimenti della bomba
三
H
強會議結果決定停止氫彈試驗，其和平作用在調查中。Les essais de bombe H définitivement suspendus. Tel est le résultat de la conférence.
Auf der Drei-Mächte-Konferenz wurde die sofortige Einstellung der Wasserstoffbombenversuche beschlossen.
government spokesman has intimated that the successful conclusion to the talks is the largest single step towards reaching a worldwide agreement on disarmament. The official statement goes on to say that the outlook towards a permanent international peace is brighter than it has been for 30 years. Golf. The World Amateur Team Championships continued at St. Andrews yesterday. At this stage of the tournament, it would appear that great...
Morning, love.
Morning, sir.
Well, will we have some biscuits this morning?
No, thank you.
Oh, out in time for breakfast.
Just about.
I say it's a right old turn up, isn't it? All this H-bomb business and that sun stuff. You know, my Bert was saying that if they did destroy the sun, make such a mess of the heavens that the astrologers wouldn't be able to tell you what's in the future anymore. It's having a butcher's at Gypsy Romano's star page what keeps me and Bert going. Come on, have a look. Leo. Tomorrow's money matters are looking up. Yeah. Our savings are going down. But anyway, it keeps you bright and cheerful, don't it? Oh, good morning, Mr. Walpole.
Morning, Bella.
On your desk.
Thank you, Bella. Good morning, Mary.
Good morning.
Is Mr. Crichton in here?
Yes, he's in there with Superintendent Travers.
Telling him that his job is over, I expect. Some people have all the luck.
I don't care if the whole world is celebrating what's happened. The fact is that that man has got to be found. Saint old madman, you've got to find him, Travers, and find him soon. There's a clause in the agreement which says if that man isn't found and his invention handed over to the United States and Soviet governments, then the agreement is null and void. We have 6 weeks in which to do just that. It was the only way we could wind up the meeting and get the agreement published to meet the ultimatum.
But why, sir? What's the point? The man we're looking for can't be called a traitor exactly. Can't even be called a criminal. He hasn't committed any crime. Unless you can call the destruction of those satellites a crime, and I don't think that sort of thing's covered in the law books. And even if we find him...
If?
I'm sorry, sir, when? Even when we find him, I don't know what we're going to be able to do with him.
Yes, we've got a point there.
We could stick him into Broadmoor, I suppose, on some pretext or another, but I don't think that's the answer. The man isn't insane.
To destroy the sun is not the act of a rational human being.
But he didn't destroy it, did he, sir? Perhaps he never would have done. It's my belief that we'll never even hear from him again.
Possibly, but whatever we say or do, the other powers always have the feeling we did discover this man and his invention, and we're keeping it to use ourselves if necessary. That is why 6 weeks was considered ample enough time in which to find him. And if we don't, the other powers will automatically assume that we are holding out to them. The agreement will be cancelled, and then heaven knows what will happen.
What will happen, sir?
Well, they'll try and eliminate us before we can develop the weapon for limited destructive power.
This is fact, is it? Not just supposition?
The clause in the agreement is fact. The rest is supposition, but I shouldn't think there's much doubt.
I thought my troubles were over.
Have you any idea where you'll start?
We're checking on everything that possibly could beam a signal to the sun. Radio telescopes, radar transmitters, television transmitters, radar installations, radio beacons, even ham transmitters. In all, about 2 years' work. Still, we don't know what we're looking for. Might be as big as a house or as small as a pocket radio. Without a detailed knowledge of the scientific principles involved, the whole thing might well prove insoluble.
Have you got anybody investigating the scientific principles?
Right from the start.
Have they come up with anything?
Yes, sir. As a matter of fact, they have. One of their reports here with me now. Having investigated most fully the principles involved, reference your memo dated the 23rd, this establishment have reached the following irrevocable conclusion. To bring about a fission of elements such as has been suggested is completely impossible. Repeat, impossible. There's more, but I don't think it's important.
Read it.
If you insist. Seeing as you've turned to this laboratory for assistance, we can only suggest the following course. Anyone who says he can perform such a fission, and anyone who believes him, should be fully investigated by a competent team of psychoanalysts with a view to having them certified.
You know it has been done?
They do, sir. They still say it's impossible.
Well, what does Lance say? He was the first who said it could be done.
He's working on it, too. He thinks it's impossible as well. I believe he always did. He just said what he did for the benefit of the assembled company.
He saw it done. Well, be all that as it may. You'll know what's got to be done, and I suggest you get on with it. You've got just 6 weeks. Yes, I know, sir. No, they haven't come up with anything yet. But we still have another week, sir. Yes, Washington's been on to me, and Moscow, too. Yes, sir, I'll tell them that. Very good, sir. Goodbye. Where's Trevor?
I think he said he was going down to Tipston to see Dr. Lann again, sir.
Well, leave a note for him to come and see me the moment he comes in.
Yes, sir.
Oh, I'm sorry, Superintendent, but that's my last word on the subject. You know, I was wrong last time. You see, this way back...
Well, look, sir, it's no good explaining the means to me. The end is enough. Couldn't possibly understand all that stuff anyway.
But it's quite simple, really, you know. As long as you know the basic principles involved.
Yes, but I don't. And that seems to be that.
Well, as I understand it, you're still trying to find out who threatened to destroy the sun. Is that it?
It is.
And who destroyed Phobos and Atheos?
Mm-hmm.
But pardon me, this is something that I don't understand. Does it really matter? Man, whoever he is and wherever he is, has achieved what he set out to do. The chances are he'll never be heard from again, so why bother to go on trying to find him?
He'll be heard from again, all right, sir, don't you worry. Next week, probably, if he's not dead before he gets a chance.
Sorry, I don't understand.
It's very simple, Doctor. Unless this man and his invention are discovered, and the invention made international property, then next week the agreement reached at the talks automatically becomes null and void. And this was a clause added to the original agreement.
Really? Well, what will happen then?
Well, Mr. Crichton thinks that the powers involved, the Soviets particularly, will think that the invention has in fact been discovered. And the British government are keeping the secret to themselves.
For what possible purpose?
To adapt it as a weapon.
Sounds rather stupid, doesn't it?
Dr. Lann, I've given up trying to work out what's stupid and what's sane in this business. All I know is that unless I come up with that invention by next Tuesday, to be exact, well, then we shall be looked upon as having committed an act of technical aggression and have to face the consequences.
This telescope, Superintendent, you know, is by far the most powerful in the world. And because of that, it's possible to see things that are unseen to anyone else.
I suppose so.
You'll be amazed at the feeling of satisfaction that results from a knowledge like that. Sitting here in front of these screens, I can see things that no other person in the world can see. Things that are happening countless millions of miles away. Things that have, in fact, happened many, many years ago, but which are even now only just visible to Earth. Or rather to me.
Well, it's very satisfying, I'm sure.
Night after night, I sit here just looking at the heavens. Watching worlds explode and disappear. Watching disturbances that would make anything that we know on Earth completely negligible. It's an incredible universe. It obeys no known laws. It has no boundaries. It can't be measured, either in distance or in time, because the faculty for comprehending such things just doesn't belong to us. It makes one realize that the petty squabblings on this, the most insignificant stellar body, are just like the dust that we breathe, meaningless and minute. But I mustn't let my enthusiasm run away with me. As I say, I can see things that no other person on Earth can see. And I saw that the satellite Phobos had gone.
Didn't we all?
Oh, before you, Superintendent, before anyone. You see, it was an infinitesimal speck in the heavens of no interest scientifically or astronomically. No one would bother to look at it while the everyday drama of the universe provided so much greater things to observe. Quite by accident, one night I discovered it just wasn't there anymore. I was testing the telescope.
Oh, wait a minute. You mean you knew it was gone before we asked you to locate it for us?
That's right.
Why didn't you say something? Why didn't you tell us?
Well, I was about to publish the disappearance of Phobos to the astronomical world, and then I stopped. Who cares? I thought it'll be of no interest to anyone. The world's too wrapped up with their own problems. Who would care about the destruction of another world countless millions of miles away? And that started me thinking about the destruction that our own world was moving towards, the annihilation of the hydrogen bombs. So I decided to see if there was anything that I, in my own small way, could contribute towards preventing this. Night after night, I scanned the universe. I looked at the uninteresting sections of the heavens that were well charted and explored and were not likely to be under constant surveillance. And then I found out what I was after. I found that the satellite Atheos was due for collision.
Collision?
Yes. A giant meteorite was heading towards it. And there was nothing that could stop the collision and final disintegration of both meteorite and Atheos. But, even more, I surmise that I alone was able to foresee this occurrence. No other telescope possessed half enough power to recognize the inevitable, so here I was armed with these two facts. One, that Phobos was no more, and two, that Atheos was due to disintegrate at 11:22 on a certain night. So, I wrote some letters.
You wrote some letters?
Well, I did nothing criminal, you understand? Nothing that could possibly bring any harm to anyone. You see, Superintendent, with my knowledge of the other planets of our universe, I know that we here are the most fortunate of God's creatures. We've inherited the Earth. Mars, Pluto, Jupiter, Venus, none of them are even remotely habitable. But the Earth is ours. We've adapted to her, and she's adapted to us. I mean, who could have existed in the Ice Age? Or when practically the entire surface of the world was covered with water, mankind couldn't. The Earth adapted herself, geographically and climatically, so the species called man could exist. Now we have these men who seem to want nothing more than to destroy her. And believe me, Superintendent, destroy her they will. The atom bomb, the hydrogen bomb, the cobalt bomb, the air around us is becoming saturated with the obscene filth released by these explosions. Already our weather pattern has begun to change. Next, we shall have the polar ice caps melting. And then one day, not so very far away, Superintendent, someone will press a button. Oh, just another test, they'll say, no possible harm. The fission will pick up some element from the soil, the air, some element we haven't even discovered. And the chain reaction will blast this Earth out of existence. I hope that in my own small way I've done something towards preventing such a catastrophe.
May I use your telephone?
Of course. But just ask for the number, they'll get it for you.
Mr. Travers, could you get me to the Foreign Office, please, Mr. Lloyd Crichton? You realize, Dr. Lunn, there'll have to be a full investigation into all this business?
Oh, there is. Well, inconvenient just now.
Even so, I'm afraid it... Hello, sir. Travers. Everything's all right, sir. We found him. No, not on the telephone, if you don't mind. I'll tell you all about it when I get back to town. What? Oh, yes. Yes, I've taken him into custody. Dr. Lunn, will you tell me something? Huh? This crack-brained idea of yours about beaming a signal to the sun, thus causing a fission, you took a bit of a chance expecting that to be believed, didn't you?
Everyone did believe it, didn't they?
Yes, they did.
Oh, I'm so glad. It would have hurt me immensely to have had to carry out my threat. Superintendent, this may interest you. It's a minor stellar body, but 6 light years.